Hello everybody and welcome back to the football betting series here on YouTube. 3 weeks into the Premier League season and we have our first international break, and normally the channel would kind of go a bit dead for the next couple of weeks. I thought in order to sort of prevent that from happening, to build on some of the early season momentum that we've had so far, I'd go through a full preview of Matchday 4, covering every single one of the Premier League games. Normally at this sort of time, just after the weekend just gone, I would be having a look at all of the upcoming fixtures and whittling down those 10 matches into 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 games that I fancy, have a good angle on. Normally it's down to pattern recognition, combining with getting a decent price. And there is a little bit of gut feeling in this. Sports betting's not an exact science. It's also not supposed to be an emotional endeavour. So I try to marry the two together, and I figured I'd maybe show you how I go about it in today's full preview. A couple of housekeeping things to touch upon. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and liking the videos over the past couple of weeks. We've flown past the 750 subscriber mark even before I could nag anyone that is our goal. Our wider goal for the season is 1,000 subscribers by the time the World Cup starts in June. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and like the video down below. If you've got any questions about my thoughts or feelings about the games in today's video, please drop them down in the comment section below. And the final disclaimer is that none of my thoughts and feelings in today's video are my official confirmed picks. In a week's time or so, I will be releasing the next episode of the football betting series with the confirmed picks. So do not take these as my selections. These are just the starting point and a little bit of a discussion on what I think is likely to be a pick if I go for that. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the preview on SofaScore. So here we are on the SofaScore app. Well, actually technically on the web browser. No sponsorship or affiliation. I just feel that the UI is nice to look at and it's very intuitive, and they're normally quite good at providing little stats and tidbits here and there. Anyway, we're looking at round 4. We're going to start off with the lunchtime kickoff, Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. You can actually see here Bet365 already have their odds loaded up. Arsenal at about 1-2. And I might use these odds to kind of guide some of my thinking when it comes to actually making a selection. More often than not, because I place my bets on the Betfair exchange, I can normally get better odds than this. But that's the difference between a exchange and a sportsbook, but I might cover that in a different video. So let's have a look at Arsenal. As we can see, we've got a couple of the season stats just to kick us off here. So through 3 games, Arsenal have scored 6, conceded once. 2 clean sheets in that time. The ball possession, I think, is a little bit low for an Arteta side. And on the backside of that, Forest's ball possession stat is getting up to 55%. I thought they were more of a counter-attacking side, so maybe it shows a slight shift in their play this season. It hasn't helped them to avoid conceding goals, no clean sheets with 5 conceded, but they do score over a goal per game. So let's have a look at Arsenal's form. So that's interesting to take into account. Champions League fixture against Athletic Club will be definitely something for me to take into account with the Champions League sides thinking about this. And as we can see, they beat Manchester United 1-0, they beat Leeds 5-0, lost to Liverpool thanks to that Szoboszlai free kick, and then they play Forest. I'd imagine they put more of their eggs into the Forest basket than the Athletic Club basket, but I don't think they look that good against Liverpool. Let's just take a quick look at this, see what the stats say. So yeah, as we can see, and I watched the game live, so anecdotally I knew that Liverpool really came on stronger in the second half. Taking a look at the stats, it was fairly 50-50 throughout the game, but most of Arsenal's shots came in the first half. 0.3 of their 4.9 XG came in that first period. Liverpool really grew into the game and dominated, and probably deserved the win based on that second half, so it's a little bit worrying for a team like Arsenal. Let's pop back to the round 3. Let's take a look at Forest now. So they lost 3-0 to West Ham in what was quite a big shock. All those goals came quite late in the match. They've done one of everything, actually. They beat Brentford on the opening day. Decent draw against Crystal Palace with the whole Marinakis situation going on. And then the loss to West Ham. They're probably going to look ahead to the Burnley game as another win, pick up 3 points there. This Arsenal game is going to present a big challenge for them. But Arsenal do have one eye on Europe. Let's take a look at the head-to-head record. So, last game was a 0-0 draw, and Arsenal won 1-2-3 before that. So they've dominated in recent years. Let's take a look at the 0-0 draw. So it looks like, based on this graph, Arsenal did have more of the ball. Let's take a look at the records. Let's take a look at the statistics. So although Arsenal did dominate, they only really created 1 XG, so that probably explains the 0-0 scoreline. Dominated the ball. They only forced 1 goalkeeper save, so of their 13 shots, a massive amount of them were off target. There we go, shots. So yeah, 1 shot on target for Arsenal. It was saved. They also hit the woodwork, so that did kind of beat the goalkeeper. But it's not that encouraging for Arsenal, is it? My early thoughts here are, given that we're coming back from the international break, Arsenal just coming off a loss, and Forest looking all right this season, I think we could probably be thinking about skipping this match. There's also the voodoo around the early kickoff and not backing it. I don't know how far I believe that, maybe to a small degree, but I'm not seeing enough here to convince me to take Arsenal or Forest or both teams to score. Definitely not thinking over 2.5 goals based on the recent productivity that we've just seen from Arsenal and this head-to-head encounter as well. I think this is probably going to be a stay away from me, but I'll do some more digging, and as I said at the start of the video, this longer form is just getting some ideas out there. It's not necessarily my picks. So right now I'm thinking stay away, but we'll see. On to the next game. And that second game is 3 o'clock kickoffs, Brighton versus Bournemouth, which is always a fun little game. Both these sides are kind of those sort of mid-table sides, which are good for some goals, good for conceding goals, and going into this game, I'm thinking both teams to score. I'm thinking over 2.5 goals, and I'm looking to collect evidence to either accept or reject that hypothesis. So, through 3 games so far, Bournemouth have scored 4 goals. 2 of them are against Liverpool, 1 of them was against Spurs, so they've shown a propensity to score against sides that are potentially bigger than them. Scoring 1.3 goals per game, they have conceded 4 across that sample of 3 games. They've got 2 clean sheets. How have they managed 2 clean sheets? Oh, yeah, all 4 of those goals were conceded to Liverpool. They won 4-2, didn't they? Okay, that makes more sense. And all of their goals have been assisted so far. Whereas Brighton, across 3, have scored 3, so they're averaging 1 goal per game. They've conceded 4, so they're slightly worse defensively, and they have no clean sheets, although they're going to be riding high off the result against Manchester City. Both sides average less than 50% possession, so it's strange because when a side that doesn't like to have the ball is forced into having more of the ball, unless these guys split possession exactly 50-50, one of these teams, Bournemouth or Brighton, will be pushed into a position where they are to have more possession in the game. It'll be interesting to see how they cope. In terms of average player ratings, Bournemouth are ranking a little bit higher than Brighton, so let's take a look at the head-to-head record. So, Bournemouth's games, first of all, as I mentioned, let's just filter for the Premier League, this competition. Yep, opening day loss to Liverpool by 4-2. They beat Wolves 1-0, and I think that really was because of the red card. I think they dominated the Spurs matchup, though, if we just take a quick look at that. The graph suggests they were potentially the better side, but the stats will really tell us. I mean, look at that. 20 shots, 1.59 XG, despite having less possession, which, to be honest, probably played into Bournemouth's hands a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Spurs, they really didn't produce anything at all. That's quite embarrassing, really. But that's really good for a Bournemouth side there. So let's get back to the Brighton match. Let's take a look at Brighton now. Again, filtering by this competition. So, as I mentioned, the recent win over Manchester City. The Everton game, they lost 2-0. I don't think they were that competitive in that match. Let's take a look at those numbers. They missed a penalty towards the end, so that is going to affect the XG. They actually did create quite a lot of XG, and then they were forced into that position where they had more possession. The XG was probably about even based on the penalty. Normally get 0.8, 0.85 for just having a penalty. Actually really unlucky not to have scored in this game. 13 shots, only 4 on target, hit the woodwork twice. Guys, I'm thinking both teams to score could be on here. Oh, no, sorry. I want to go back to the Bournemouth-Brighton game, head-to-head record, and then let's actually look at their head-to-head record. So the last encounter saw Brighton win 2-1 at the Amex, they won 2-1 at the Vitality, Bournemouth won 3-0, so that's not a both teams to score. So pattern-wise, we could be looking at over 2.5 goals. It's come in each of the last 4, and the year 2023 didn't have as much going on. Then they picked up some more high-scoring games here. Let's just have a look at what happens at the Vitality. So over 2.5, over 2.5, no, over 2.5, over 2.5, no. So what's that? 4 in the last 5 have seen over 2.5 goals. And of that sample, 3 of those 4 have seen both teams to score. This is going to be one to really think about over the international break and try and collect some injury information from both sides, but I could be looking at both teams to score or over 2.5. I'm leaning, it's like a 60-40. I'm leaning more towards over 2.5 at this moment in time, but I could maybe be persuaded for both teams to score. I think that both what we've seen from that brief look at the stats in the last game, and I'll go back in my own time and have a more comprehensive look, but both these sides create XG. XG normally equals goals. Brighton haven't maintained a single clean sheet this season, but Bournemouth have, which brings, if we're going over 2.5 goals, it brings a 3-0 to Bournemouth into play. But I think Brighton, they've been unlucky so far. That luck will turn at some point. Yeah, I'm like 60-40, both teams to score over 2.5 over both teams to score. But yeah, interesting one for sure. Definitely tune into next episode to see what I decide on that. I don't think I'll be walking away from this. I might temper things with a half stake because we're coming back from the international break, but maybe over 2.5 goals at a half stake of £25. That's my leading thought right now. Let's go on to game number 3. Game number 3 looks like Crystal Palace Sunderland. So let's take a look at that. I've been quite impressed with Crystal Palace so far to this point in the season, although the immediate stat that just jumped out to me is they've had 37% of the ball. That's wild. Okay, cool. So yeah, Crystal Palace averaging a 7.0, which is actually the 4th ranked team in the Premier League in terms of average rating. Across their 3 games, they've scored 4 goals, 1.3 per game. They've conceded only 1 with 2 clean sheets, and half their goals have been assisted, which is not bad at all. Sunderland, on the other hand, they are ranked 10 out of 20, so bang slap in the middle, 6.84, 3 matches played, 5 goals scored, so 1.7 per game. They've conceded slightly more with 3, 1 clean sheet, 3 assists from 5 goals scored is good, and 50% possession almost, which for a newly promoted side, I'd argue that's a bit on the higher side. I expected it to be closer to 45. Anyway, let's take a look at some of their games. I mean, also another thing that jumps out to me is Bet365 have Crystal Palace at, what's that, 6 over 10, 1.6. I reckon on Betfair that'll come to about 1.7, which is tempting, to be honest. Right, Crystal Palace. So they come in, filtered by Premier League. 0-0 draw against Chelsea, where I think they did quite well to earn the point there. There was that controversy around the interference of the wall, which did actually deny Palace 2 points there with that goal. But I mean, people can complain all they want, but the rules are the rules. You can't interfere with the wall. The guy interfered with the wall as the ball was being struck, so I don't really see how you can have any complaints about it, but maybe that's just me. Then they had the 1-1 draw against Forest, quite an emotional game. Obviously, Forest owner Marinakis cost Crystal Palace a spot in the Europa League, but they'll be playing Conference League this season. And then a really dominant display against Aston Villa. Mateta got them started with the penalty, and then Gay and Sarr. I'm not sure if Gay's going to stay with Palace, but he did seem quite up for it when he celebrated the goal. So maybe that's a sign he is going to stay this season with Crystal Palace, and then maybe look at Liverpool move in the summer. Right, so 58% possession for Aston Villa. They created 1 XG compared to Palace's 2.85. Again, like I discussed in the last game, the penalties are worth about 0.8 XG, so really we're looking at about a 1.8 created from open play. 4 big chances, 6 shots, and then they scored 3 of them. So obviously this second string goalkeeper, is it Bizot? Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not as good as Martinez. The window's about to shut. Martinez might go to, not City, he might go to Manchester United. So that's definitely going to be an issue. Maybe something they want to address on deadline day, or in the summer. Well, I could get someone in on loan in January, I suppose. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds. Yeah, stats-wise, Palace obviously had the better of this game. They managed to withstand a good amount of pressure from Aston Villa. 10 corners for Aston Villa in that one. But Crystal Palace held strong, and then they scored 2 more times. So I don't think you can complain about that too much if you're a Villa fan. Right, let's get back to see what Sunderland were up to at this competition. Show more. Right, so yeah, opening day win against West Ham. Lost to Burnley on the road, and then managed to beat Brentford. And that was... I know how they did it. They scored 2 late goals. Penalty came in, so be mindful of the XG there. And then a Wilson Isidore 96th minute winner after Igor Thiago. And I believe in Matchday 3 I took both teams to score here, so I was happy to see that result come in. Looks like they're stronger at the Stadium of Light here. Now this XG probably makes up for half their stuff, so be mindful that they probably didn't create as much as it would suggest, but then neither did Brentford. They had a penalty and missed it. So this is probably about a 0.7 to 0.4 kind of game. So I think I got a bit lucky for both teams to score. 3 shots on target to 4, so it's not bad, but unconvincing from Sunderland. Early thoughts are thinking about taking Crystal Palace to win, to be perfectly frank with you. They don't have a European fixture because the Conference League starts a couple weeks later, so then they'd have a whole week of rest before the West Ham game. So we don't have to worry about fixture rotation there. Sunderland, are they out of the EFL Cup? They are out of the EFL Cup, so they're also going to be full strength. Taking a look at the head-to-head record, these guys haven't played in ages, so we're looking at, what's that, February of 2017, where Sunderland won 4-0. Crystal Palace won a game. So this must have been the season that Sunderland went down. Some high-scoring games in there, but I don't know if I can really take that in terms of both teams score over 2.5 and apply it to the modern setting, because the modern narrative is one game has seen over 2.5 for Crystal Palace and one game has seen both teams to score. And I think it's a similar picture with Sunderland. One game's seen both teams to score. Actually, 2 of them seen over 2.5. But based on the chance creation that we've seen from Crystal Palace at this point, 3 is a bit of an anomaly. Could take unders. Coming off an international break as well, that normally breaks up the play. Right now I'm thinking Crystal Palace to win at about 1.7, 1.75 would be really good. Or maybe going under 2.5 for a half stake or under 3.5 for a full stake. It would depend on where the bookmakers set the line, what they think. Because if Palace do win, I think it could be a 2-0, 2-1 sort of game. I don't think Sunderland are going to be as good on the road. They're going to really try and bank their points from home this season. Coming off an international break, we're probably thinking half stake Crystal Palace to win. Or unders. They're my 2 thoughts. I'll go away and I'll do some thinking. So let's see what happens in the official episode on Matchday 4. Okay, game number 4 is the Jack Grealish derby, Everton versus Aston Villa. So Everton have scored 5 goals, averaging 1.7, 3 conceded, 1 clean sheet, 5 assists, and 43% of the ball, which isn't uncommon for a David Moyes side. They're a top 7 side in terms of average rating, but Aston Villa, they've got off to a poor start. 3 games, haven't scored yet, conceded 4 times with 1 clean sheet. They are holding a lot of the ball, so I'd suggest less possession, more goals is the way forward for Aston Villa. Let's take a look at the head-to-head records. So Everton in this competition. Opening day defeat to Leeds, followed by the 2-0 win against Brighton at their brand new shiny stadium. And a 3-2 win against Wolves, but I don't think they were really in ever much doubt of losing this game. Beto scored starting off, then Hwang equalised, Iliman and Dye, then Dewsbury Hall made it 3-1, then a consolation goal from Rodrigo Gomez. Stats-wise, going away to Molineux, 40% of the ball, created 2 XG, to Wolves 1, 10 shots. A lot of shots off target, I'm noticing. More so from Wolves, but still. Looks like Jack Grealish is creating a good impression on the side, although Keenan Dewsbury Hall won player of the match. Okay, let's have a look at Aston Villa. Where are they going wrong? I think I pointed out earlier that potentially goalkeeper's an issue for them. I wonder what role Emi Martinez played in helping them keep clean sheets and pick up points, but goalless against Newcastle, but they were down to 10, so I'd say that's a good point, actually. We've already looked at the Crystal Palace stats. Let's take a look at the Brentford game. Lost 1-0. They were behind early thanks to Otara. Then they dominated the game, but SofaScore does this thing where possession equals dominance, and, well, I mean, they did dominate, both on possession in terms of shots and chances and stuff, so really, I mean, you'd like to see the XG get a little bit higher, but they created 10 shooting opportunities. How many of these were on target? Just one. Ollie Watkins really needs to put his shooting boots back on. That's not ideal at all. Really hard to pin down this game. Obviously, the forms with Everton right now, I'd say on average the Aston Villa team are better, except from in goal. Let's have a look at the head-to-head records. So last time these guys played was at Goodison, and Aston Villa picked up the 1-0 win. Aston Villa also won at Villa Park 3-2, so quite tight games. There's also a 0-0 in there, EFL Cup. Let's just try and keep it Premier League. Then there was a 4-0, but that's almost 2 years ago now. So of late, especially these two, where David Moyes has been in charge. Well, actually, this one was, but I don't know about that one. Quite tight games. Not necessarily low scoring with the 3-2 and the 4-0 here. This might be a stay away. I don't really know what we could do here. Everton are quite long for a home side. 3-2. The draw's in there as well. Do we back a draw? And then Aston Villa at 2-1. So I think this tells the narrative that the bookmakers, they're not too sure what's going on. International break is going to break up both the good and the bad form for Aston Villa and Everton. I think this might be a stay away from me. I'll go away, I'll have a look, but right now I'm thinking probably stay away. Okay, back to the main menu, and game number 5 sees Fulham take on Leeds. Early favourites, Fulham here, about even money, or 9-10 at home. Leeds, you can get just better than 3-1. A bad guide suggesting that Fulham should win this game by a goal. That's normally what those odds kind of mean. Across 3 games, they've only scored twice though, so they're averaging less than a goal per game. They've conceded 4, so not the best of starts. No clean sheets here as well, and just one of their 2 goals being assisted. Near 50% possession isn't bad, whereas Leeds, 3 games, only 1 goal scored, so it's even worse for record. So immediately our heads should be going to, oh, okay, they're combining together to average 1 goal. We should be looking at unders here. Although they both concede. Can these defences be trusted? Although Leeds have 2 clean sheets here, which means all 5 of these goals came from the 5-1 Arsenal result, and the ball possession of about 43% is what you'd probably expect, because Leeds are going to come into most games, if not all games, as the second best team on paper. So let's take a look at Fulham's recent results in the Premiership. So league started here with the 1-1 draw against Brighton. They also had a 1-1 draw against Manchester United. So they've shown that they can score, but they can also concede. Then this Chelsea game, I remember watching this live actually. Chelsea did benefit a couple times from some interesting VAR decisions. I don't know if they got both of them wrong. Definitely the halfway incident where there was this alleged stamp. It's one of the ones where the stamp did help Fulham get the opening goal before it was chalked off. So if it's given against your side, you'd be quite annoyed. But you don't want to be on the receiving end of that, is what I'm trying to say. So it's difficult. Anyway, a loss to Chelsea. But to be honest, let's take a look at the stats before I just tell a lie. I was going to say, to be honest, I didn't really see too much goal creativity from Fulham other than the goal that was chalked off. So yeah, 1.02. A third of that came in the first half. They did get better in the second half, but so did Chelsea. 11 shots created, only 3 of which were on target though. What was their lineup like? Who did they go with? Did they go with Muñoz up top? Because he started on the bench a couple of times. So yeah, Muñoz started has got 6-3. Then he was subbed off for Jimenez, who did even worse at a 6-2. I don't know how you can talk me out of unders right now. Let's see what Leeds have to say. So we have Leeds here in the Premier League, this competition. 1-0 win against Everton on the opening day. Sorry, I said 5-1 earlier, didn't I? They lost 5-0 to Arsenal, which, look, it's a newly promoted side against a side that really are going to hope to be challenging for the Premier League. The top 2 side in the last 3 seasons. 5-0 is not an ungodly scoreline that I'm super scared by. Obviously, it breaks the narrative that I'm building of under 2.5 or under 3.5 goals. And then the goalless draw against Newcastle. Let's see what the numbers were like there. Statistics. Yeah, so actually Leeds were the more creative. The less possession. 10 shots, 0.7. But then again, just because they got a higher number than their away team doesn't actually mean they were very good. most teams, if they get a 0.7, they're not going to win the game. They might get lucky to draw 0-0. 2 goals, so 5-5. Newcastle outpassed them. That's what you expect from a side that had a better possession. 1 of their 10 shots were on target for Leeds. 2 of Newcastle's 8. Yeah, I mean, this is not... Let's take a look at the lineup, because I saw Calvert-Lewin in the Carabao Cup, and he was poor. He was getting himself into good positions, but he wasn't really finishing. And he came on and played 20 minutes and got a 6-3. Okay, it's against Newcastle, but still, a 6-6, 6-7 should be really minimum for most Premier League players. Jack Harrison doing okay. Notto was poor. Let's see the Fulham Leeds head-to-head record. It's going to be taken with a pinch of salt, because obviously Leeds being a newly promoted side, the last time they would have played was 2023. Let's keep it localised to the Premier League. So this bucks the trend for sure. I've been building a narrative, painting a picture of under 2.5 or under 3.5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of the last 4, 5. So each of the last 4 and 5 of the last 6 games have seen over 2.5 goals. Let's look at the most recent lineups, because how many of these players are still here? Adarabioyo's gone to Chelsea. Robinson's there. Leno's still in goal. Polina's gone. Harry Reid's there. Wilson's there. Is Pereira still there? I'm not sure. I'm drawing an absolute blank on Pereira. Sasha Lukic is still there. Vinicius is gone. Kearney's gone. Solomon's gone. Cabango's also gone. And then we have a look at the Leeds side. Meslier. No, Mellier's gone, isn't he? Kenny's over at Juventus. Harrison's still around. Aronson's there. Somerville's gone to West Ham. Notto. Essentially, the counter-argument to this, the counter-argument to the, oh yeah, look at all the unders in the Premier League so far, is this head-to-head record. But what I was just doing there by looking at the lineups is confirming that actually 8 or 9 of those players that have got these 2-1s, these 3-2s, these 2-1s, these 4-3s, have changed. So I'm not going to look at the side from like September of 2020 and think, oh gosh, there's a 7-goal thriller. Because actually a quarter or maybe even half of the players at an absolute maximum would still be here. Again, not an official pick, but I'm tempted to take under 2.5 for a half stake or under 3.5 for a full stake. I don't think this game's going to have many goals, and that's my final thoughts on this one. Okay, next up is match number 6. Still at the 3 o'clock kickoffs, Newcastle versus Wolves. Newcastle's are fairly strong favourites, about 1-2, draws 3-1, and Wolves you can get about 5-1. Through 3 games so far, Newcastle have only scored 2 goals, which is an average of 0.7 per game. They have allowed 3, but 2 clean sheets in this time, which means we're looking at 1 game where they conceded all 3 goals. That game is failing my notice right now, but that's fine. About 50% of the ball compared to Wolves, who have a pretty identical goal-scoring record, but they've conceded 8 in 3. No clean sheets. Not a great start for Wolves. I mean, you can go back to the previous videos at the start of this season. I thought losing Aït-Nouri, losing Cunha, that's 41% of their goal output. It's going to be a big problem for Wolves. So first thing to pay notice to is Newcastle host Barcelona straight after this match, which could be a factor to consider. Of course, yeah, the Newcastle game where they conceded 3 was against Liverpool. So they lost 1-0 to Everton, drew 0-0 to Aston Villa. That was actually a really poor result for the Toon. And then that's when Rio Ungamoa scored at the last minute against Newcastle there. They're actually better when they went down to 10 men. Okay, let's take a look at Wolves in this competition. Yep, 3 losses. They were beaten up by Manchester City on Matchday 1. We saw the stats of the Everton game where they probably didn't really deserve anything there. Let's have a look at this Bournemouth match. They lost 1-0 at the Vitality. Early goal from Marcus Tavernier. I mean, that paints the picture that Bournemouth were the better side. But let's take a look at the stats. Dude, what are Wolves doing? They've offered nothing in this game. They've offered nothing in their other games as well. When did they get the red card? They got a red card just after half-time. They were already losing 1-0. When it was 11 versus 11 in the first half, they were still being dominated. Okay. I think this is fairly open and shut. I've just received notice on X that Alexander Isak has gone, but he never featured for Newcastle this season at all, so I don't know how big... I mean, obviously, in a wider scale, it's going to be a big miss, but in terms of interpreting Newcastle's results and stats this season, I don't think Isak's going to be a miss at all. Hopefully that makes sense. Last time these guys played at Newcastle, it was 3-0. How involved was Isaac? So he got 2 goals there, Gordon got the other. Statistically, see, Wolves put up more of a fight, but then this was last season where they probably had Cunha and Aït-Nouri in the lineup. They had Aït-Nouri in the lineup. Larson put a 6-1 in. No, they had Cunha play the second half at a 7-1, yeah. So, again, I'm trying to think of, like, why wouldn't I just take the easy money at 1-2 with Newcastle to win? They won 1, 2, 3, 4. So they won each of the last 3 and 4 of the last 5. Let's filter by Newcastle, because you can do that on SofaScore. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so each of the last 4 at St James Park, they've won. They've won the last 2 quite handedly. The only factor that could be an issue here would be the Newcastle-Barcelona game. But given the start to the season they've had... Oh, that's last season. Bear with me. Given the start to the season that Newcastle have had, if we take a look at the Premier League table, 17th, I think they need to pick up more points in the league. And Wolves have the worst defensive record in the league, -6, 8 conceded, 3 losses, 0 points. So if you're going to pick up points, it's going to be against a side like Wolves. So I could go half stake because of the international break and because of the Barcelona game coming up, but I'm thinking it's a straight up Newcastle win at home. I think that's what I'm thinking for the 6th match. Okay, next up we've got 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, West Ham versus Spurs, which is a London derby. Let's take a look. So West Ham, lower mid-table sort of rating, 6.7, 3 games played, 4 scored, which is decent, 1.3 per game. 8 conceded does tie them with Wolves as the worst defensive side. 1 clean sheet in that time. About 50% of the ball, not too bad. Spurs, shocking a few neutrals, 2nd best average rating, 5 goals scored, 1.7 per game. Only conceded once as well, which is pretty handy. 2 clean sheets and over 55% possession. In terms of odds, West Ham 2-1, draw 2-1, and Spurs about even money, which I'd say is probably about right. West Ham coming off that, because Ipswich went down, so... Yeah, opening day defeat, pretty embarrassing. The Chelsea game, they put up no fight whatsoever. Chelsea scored those 5 goals within about an hour, and really, they could have gone on to score more. But a really good showing towards the end of the game in the Forest match. Saw a clean sheet and 3 goals scored. Unfortunately, the international breaks come at a terrible time for Graham Potter and for West Ham too. Oh, before I quickly filter that, so Spurs play Villarreal 3 days after the West Ham game, which is a factor. That's not a good look for Spurs. 3-0 against Burnley, no one was shocked. They do well against Man City normally, and they've done well again, so 2-0. The Bournemouth result, I mean, I think we already took a look at these stats in this video. I look at so many stats that it's hard to keep track sometimes, but they gave absolutely nothing here. I mean, that's so poor, isn't it? First half, didn't have a single shot. Second half had 5 shots, but they're just, I mean, edge of the box, outside the box, just sod all really there from Spurs, which is quite disappointing. Let's get back to our West Ham game. Already, so early thoughts already, I'm thinking, okay, Spurs have this Villarreal game. They're coming off a loss where they've really kind of not shown too much. West Ham are coming off a win where they're starting to turn things around. So already I'm kind of like, I want to leave this game alone. But let's take a look at the head-to-head record. So last game was a 1-1 draw at the Olympic Stadium. Spurs won 4-1. There's not a 1-1 in there. Is both teams to score good? Again, I don't think so, because if we take a look at Spurs, where's the both teams to score in recent form? There isn't. They've either won 2-0 or they've lost 2-0. West Ham as well. The Chelsea game, so it's 1 out of 3. Across both sides, 1 out of 6. Let's take a look at this recent game. Bowen and Odobert. I don't even think Odobert's in the Spurs squad right now. If he is, he's in the peripheries. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of creativity. Both teams combining for about 1.61 is that? If my maths is correct. 18 shots, but only 4 on target. I want to leave this alone. I don't think there's much more I can say. Spurs have Champions League coming up. Both of them have been broken up by the international break. I mean, that's the theme of this episode, I suppose, but I've not seen enough here to think Spurs are even money, even for like a half stake. I just like, there's better spots that we've already discussed, and I'd imagine that are going to come up in this episode. So yeah, I think West Ham Spurs stay away. I'm not interested in this one at all. Okay, I think we're on game number 8 now. Oh, round 4. But we're still on Saturday. West London derby, Brentford versus Chelsea, the late kickoff at 8 o'clock. Immediately, the 3-4 for Chelsea sticking out to me as pretty decent value. But let's go through the teams. 3 games played for Brentford, 3 goals scored, so 1 per game, 5 conceded, 1 clean sheet. Really struggling for possession here. Possession isn't really Brentford's game though, so whilst I'm not horrified by that, probably needs to get up closer to the 40 mark. Chelsea, according to SofaScore, best average rating this year in the Premier League. 7 goals scored across their 3 games, averaging over 2 per game. They've only allowed 1 goal, which means they've kept 2 clean sheets, and they're doing well in the possession stats. These two numbers complement each other quite nicely, and I'd imagine that's what we're going to expect at the G-Tech. Let's take a look at the records. So, Brentford, this competition. Started the season off by losing to Forest, picked up a cheeky result against Aston Villa, and then they lost with a quick double towards the end of the game to Sunderland, which was a really difficult result to take. Keith Andrews probably needs the international break to rethink what's going on. They've got 2 West London derbies coming up against Chelsea and then Fulham. Not been enamoured by Brentford so far this season. They have struggled for goals despite the signing of Dango Tada. What has Chelsea been up to? So Chelsea have Bayern Munich. That is 4 days after this game, so we need to take that into account. I don't think Chelsea are tipping themselves as title contenders this season, so maybe they'll put more resources into the Bayern game. The squads are incredibly big these days, so you never know. Goalless draw against Crystal Palace, where some people consider them lucky. Could have lost that game 1-0 on a different day. Then they battered West Ham 5-1. Then they, again, maybe got a little bit lucky in the Fulham result. But 7 points from the opening 3 games is nothing to be sniffed at. I think they'll probably beat Brentford. Let's have a look at the recent records. So, last match at the G-Tech saw 0-0. The one before that saw Brentford draw 2-2. Oh, wow. Whoa. What's going on here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Chelsea have won 1 of the last 7 Premier League encounters. Let's filter by at Brentford and the Premier League. Wow. So for Chelsea's last win at the G-Tech, I almost said Griffin Park. Last win at the G-Tech, you have to go back to 2021. Okay. That definitely gives you something to think about, and maybe why those odds are long. But to be fair, like on the exchange, on Betfair, just before kickoff, that could even get as high as 1.85, 1.9 territory, which I think could still be decent. Let's take a look at the Premier League. Chelsea 2nd, Brentford 15th. Quite a golfing class. Chelsea... So here's what I'm thinking. Chelsea have conceded 1 goal so far this season. Brentford are struggling to score goals. Chelsea have scored 7. Brentford are conceding more than the average. Although, maybe the average is about 5. Oh, no, because Newcastle conceded 2, Fulham... Yeah. So, Brentford's slightly worse than average defensively. I've not been impressed with Brentford this season so far. Haven't been overly impressed by Chelsea, but I think that they probably can get the job done here. The only factor that would give me a little bit of concern would be the Bayern Munich game coming up in a few days' time. Early thoughts here, I might take Chelsea on a half stake, or maybe even lay Brentford here for the full stake, or stay away. This is going to be one of those games where if this is my 5th or 6th kind of best option, I'll probably drop it. If it's like my 3rd or 4th best option, once I've done some further analysis, I might take Chelsea for a half stake or lay Brentford. That's where my head is right now at time of recording. Okay, so now we're on to Sunday, Burnley versus Liverpool at 2 o'clock at Turf Moor. And Liverpool are strong favourites. 1-3 for the away side is, well, it's not unheard of in the Premier League, but it's quite rare. That's normally when a side is definitely going to win the game. There's not much of a contest. But let's try and give Burnley a fair shake at this. So they're the 15th best team by average rating at 6.66, which is, it's pretty average in terms of like ratings. The ratings you'll see on the pitch or the breakdown from SofaScore, if a player's played and they've not had a terrible game, they'll get about a 6.6 or a 6.7. So that just goes to show the sort of quality that we're dealing with in the Premiership. 3 matches, 4 goals scored. They have conceded 6 in that time, so that's an average of 2 per game conceded. 1 clean sheet, and just shy of 38% possession, which isn't... That's probably what you expect from a Burnley side just coming up from the Championship. Liverpool, they've been pretty dominant. 3 games, 8 goals, 2.7. They have conceded 4, which is the main concern here actually for a Liverpool side. Their strategy this season is definitely going to be, we're going to outscore you, instead of an Arsenal strategy, which is we're going to win 1 or 2-0. Didn't work too well at the weekend as Liverpool won 1-0, but that's the general strategy. Let's take a look at the head-to-head record now. Starting with Burnley, who lost 3-2 to Manchester United. They're handily beaten by Spurs on match day 1. I don't really know what we can say about that other than this is just a clear difference between a decent Premier League side and a side coming up from the Championship. Not a completely unexpected result. They did well against Sunderland. Obviously last year it was a Championship fixture, and Sunderland came out via the playoffs, so a game that Burnley would have not banked on winning, but perhaps, that's where they were circling 3 points there. The Man United game was a bit harsh on them. Let's take a quick look at that. So, there's all sorts going on here. So, the scoring was opened by Josh Collins' own goal. Then Foster equalised, and Buemo pegged back straight away. Jadon Anthony equalised, and then Bruno Fernandes' 97th minute penalty. Now, the theme of today's episode is international break, but it's also penalties. So if we take off the 0.8 XG, it's still Manchester United had 2.43, which is over double that of Burnley. Burnley made their chances count, had 2 big chances and scored 6 shots, 3 on target and 2 goals, but we know what Manchester United's goalkeeping problems has been like this season. Perhaps Emi Martinez coming in will help with that. But let's try and stay focused on Burnley here. They were outclassed in both halves pretty handily. They came on better in the second half, as you could probably guess from the 2 goals and the time of those 2 goals. A lot of the game was played in midfield and in Burnley's half. This doesn't make good reading for Burnley. The 3-2 probably flatters them a little bit. They, if a goalkeeper had hands, they'd probably, 3-1, 3-0 would be the sort of scoreline that we're expecting. And it might be the scoreline that Liverpool puts on them. So let's take a look at Liverpool's results now. The theme for Liverpool has been last-minute winners. They had Chiesa and... forgive me, I can't remember who the second person was, but Chiesa and someone scored these 2... was it Chiesa and Salah? Chiesa and Salah scored to make it 4-2 late on in the Bournemouth game. The Newcastle game, that was a 98th minute winner from the kid. When Newcastle played better down to 10. I think on the balance of play, I did watch the game, but I think Liverpool were the better side in this Arsenal match. Not a lot of XG, to be honest, but they did do better in the second period. They were stronger, and if at any time in this Burnley game, Liverpool really push the advantage and Burnley tire a bit, it will be in that second half. I think this might be a bit of an open and shut case. So Liverpool play Atletico Madrid. Normally I'd be a bit scared off, and you might notice a pattern as I go forward in episodes. If a Champions League side like Liverpool are playing a big championship tie against Atletico Madrid, I might just ignore the Premier League game beforehand and be like, well, they'll probably beat Burnley, but they're going to be more focused on this. Atletico Madrid have been really bad this season. Let me actually jump across and we'll tangent from the Premier League a little bit to show you what Atletico have been up to this year. So this is the La Liga standings, and look at Atletico. 2 draws, 1-1 with Elche, 1-1 with Deportivo Alavés. They actually lost 2-1 to Espanyol. This is terrible. It's terrible, 1, because they've not scored that much, but 2, Atletico Madrid's identity is built on defensive solidity. They've had no clean sheets and conceded 4 and 3. That's so poor, and already the other El Clasico clubs, and even Villarreal and Athletic Madrid and Bilbao are getting away from them. So I don't think Liverpool are going to have too much trouble. And I think they're also deep enough now with Isaac being signed, and they've got a million midfielders and wingers that they could handle Burnley, rotate half their squad, and then play a full strength 11 against Atletico Madrid. At 1-3, it's a bit long, but I'm tempted. I'm tempted to take Liverpool to win against Burnley. I think also, again, I've mentioned it multiple times in this episode, on the exchange with Betfair, you're probably going to get odds of about 1.5 just before kickoff, which I think is a lot nicer. Obviously, Liverpool score, take the lead, and you cover. I need to do an updated video on how to cover and why an exchange is better than a sportsbook. Maybe I'll do that next international break. But yeah, so you put your 50 quid down on Liverpool to win. They take a lead at some point in the game. You remove all of your equity. Instead of winning 25, you might win 20, you might win 18, but you don't lose anything either. I don't think Atletico Madrid are going to be that big of a challenge for this Liverpool side, who have started off quite well. But in terms of the Liverpool-Burnley match, I'm going to be backing Liverpool to win. You know what I haven't done? I went on a tangent there, didn't I? But I didn't even take a look at the recent head-to-head record. I think partially because I knew that Burnley were recently promoted. So there's not going to be last season's head-to-head record. But let's have a look at the season before last when they went down. There we go, head-to-head. So yeah, last time these sides faced, Liverpool won 3-1. Let's think about at Turf Moor. Liverpool 2-0, Liverpool 1-0, Liverpool 3-0, Liverpool 3-0, Liverpool 3-1. Yeah, so what's that, six in a row, Liverpool have won. At Turf Moor, last time Burnley won, you'd go back to August of 2016, which is 2 relegations ago. So I mean, yeah, I'm not bothered at all by this. Jota and Nunez, neither of them are no longer at the club. They managed to win that game quite convincingly. Yeah, I mean, look at those stats. It's over twice the XG, similar amounts of chances, over twice the amount of shots, 8 goalkeeper saves from a young James Trafford. Obviously, Burnley don't have James Trafford anymore, so that's obviously another issue for the Clarets. Yeah, Liverpool to win. I'm feeling pretty confident that this will make it into the episode. But as I said, take it with a pinch of salt. These aren't my locked-in predictions, but yeah, Liverpool to win against Burnley at 1-3, 1-5, that sort of range. I'd be happy to take that price. And that's match number 9, isn't it? So game number 10 must involve Manchester United. It's Manchester City versus Manchester United. City are favourites at home. It's 1.7. Draws 3-1. United to win is about 3-1 as well. City, they've been the 6th best team according to SofaScore this year. Scored 5 in their 3 matches. They've conceded 4 as well, though. 2 of which was against Brighton in the last game, I know that for sure. And in typical Pep fashion, 61% of the ball is not unexpected. Manchester United, they've done better than last year, where they finished 16th. 8th best side according to the average ratings on SofaScore, but it's still early days. They've scored 4 goals, they've conceded 4 goals, no clean sheets. 57 ball possession is how Amorim likes to play. Let's take a look at the recent fixtures for these sides. So Manchester City, they play Napoli after this match. Napoli are a really fun side. Are they my favourite side in Italy? I do like Inter as well, but Napoli are a fun side to watch. They're going to give City some problems, especially with players like McTominay throwing himself forward. And obviously, it's a return to the Etihad for Kevin De Bruyne, so an emotional night for sure. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have on this Manchester derby, as there's a 4-day break between the games. City, they demolished Wolves, lost to Spurs, and then against Brighton, I know that Brighton came back from a goal down. Yeah, so Erling Haaland scored after 34 minutes, Milner got a penalty against his old club, and Gruda scored in the last minute of the game. Statistically, it looks like Brighton were better in the second half, and they were better across the whole game. 37% possession, 2.29 XG. They did have a penalty, though, so again, take off the difference there, about 0.8, which brings it to 1. I can't do the maths. 1.6? No, 1.49. So City did out XG them. Similar amount of chances, similar amount of shots. City actually made more. City have made more saves, so James Trafford picked up the man of the match. Only 3 shots on target from City, which is actually really poor. 7 on target from 12 for Brighton, which is good. First half was all City, and second half was all Brighton. That's very powerful, actually, to illustrate that point. Okay, cool. So that's poor from City, and it continues their sort of narrative that they've got off to a slow start this season. I don't think anyone can deny that. Speaking of slow starts, though, let's take a look at Manchester United. So they're not involved in any European football at all, so we don't have anything to worry about here. There is 6 days between the Manchester derby and their match against Chelsea. Let's have a look at the Premier League. Yeah, 1-0 loss to Arsenal, but the meme is that they played better. They also gave up a 1-goal lead against Fulham, and then they beat Burnley, and we've reviewed those stats earlier on in today's video. So 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat to their name. Let's take a look at the head-to-head record. The last Manchester derby was goalless. Then Manchester United actually had the better of it. There's quite a lot of FA Cups. Let's filter by the Premier League, because that's what this competition is. So a goalless draw, Manchester United, Manchester City. So they've shared the spoils in these last 3 games. Man City, Man United, Man City, Man City, Man City, Man City. So in the Amorim... Oh, sorry, I knocked my mic. In the Amorim era, which is these 3 games. When did Ten Hag get sacked? He got sacked before January, so is these 3... That's a Ten Hag result. I'm not going to fact check that. I'm just going to stick with it. Yeah, these 3 games, Amorim, it's been pretty even going between the Manchester clubs. I don't trust Manchester United's goalkeeper situation. If they sign Emi Martinez, I trust it a bit more, but he can be... is it erratic, the word I'm looking for? Unpredictable? Just as Onana and Bayindir are. City... Trafford's made a couple of mistakes, but he's a good lad, and they could also be looking to sign Donnarumma by the time this game starts. I've not seen enough from Man City to think that, oh yeah, we're going to bash Manchester United around. Manchester United, similarly, I've not seen enough to think, oh yeah, they can get anything from the City game. I don't trust either side, and it is a real shame, from a content creation standpoint, and the Manchester derby, it's a big game. I think this is a stay away. I don't know what angle you'd take. Would you take both teams to score? Didn't happen here. Didn't happen here. Happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in the last 7 it's happened. Take a look at the Etihad. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it's happened each of the last 4 times at the Etihad. But can you honestly sit there and think, oh yeah, the way I've seen Manchester United play this season, I think they can score against City. It's less of a support for Manchester United and more of an indictment of City, thinking, okay, City's defence are quite weak. They've conceded against Brighton. They conceded against Spurs. They conceded against... Well, they didn't concede against Wolves, did they? No. One side of me, the content creation bit, is like, oh, you got to find an angle on the Manchester derby, find Haaland shot on target or something like that. But I'm just like, no. Actually, I've got to practice what I'm preaching. I'm thinking about not forcing bets and not being silly and just being like, oh well, you've got to because it's the Manchester derby. I'd feel differently if it was the Champions League final, World Cup final, whatever. I'd find an angle so early in the season after the international break. City have the Champions League on the horizon. They've got off to a poor start. Manchester United have been unreliable. This is a stay away. So there we go. Over the course of the last 10 games on Matchday 4, I've ranted a little bit. I've gone on a tangent with Atletico Madrid and thought about the Manchester derby as well. But I think there's some early thoughts there. There's some good analysis done. We've got some direction. Some games we've just binned off straight away, which is, part of selecting these games for the episodes, but also for your general betting practice. You shouldn't be trying to force things. You shouldn't be, oh, well, I'll bet on the 12 o'clock game, then I'll take a 3 o'clock game, 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, then let's do a 2 o'clock on Sunday, and then the 4:30 on the Sunday. I need to have at least 6 bets going. It's like, well, no, you don't. If you want to have 6 bets on the 3 o'clocks all at the same time, because those games make sense to you, then do that. But don't try and force it. That would be my advice. And that's the advice I'm going to try and follow, especially with the Manchester derby. If a game's not making sense to you, don't take it. If a game makes sense statistically, but not in your gut, then don't take it. If you've got a feeling about a game, really, surely Fernandez shot on target's going to happen, but the numbers aren't there to back it up, don't take it either. This isn't a science, this isn't an art, this is a bit of both, and there's a reason bookmakers make a lot of profit from punters, because it's unpredictable. The bets that I publish next week aren't going to be guaranteed winners, they never are, but they're going to be well thought out, with some statistical undertones, with some patterns to follow, and the way that we bet as well on the exchange, covering bets as soon as they start to win for us. Over the long term, that arbitrage is how you make profit. So I guess the last thing for me to say in today's video is, if you've made it to this point, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. And always gamble responsibly. And as always, have yourself a lovely day. I will see you next week for Matchday 4's official picks.